What brush are you using? That's right, your own. I'm going to show you how to create basic custom brushes in Photoshop. Brushes can get complicated, but my focus here is to create more of a general everyday brush. Start by creating an interesting silhouette on its own layer. After that, go to Edit, Define Brush Preset. This will use that silhouette to create a new brush, but we aren't quite done yet. Once you have named and created your new brush, you will need to use that to create the actual everyday brush. To do this, we need to open up the Brush Settings panel by clicking this little folder icon with the brush on it. This opens a new window filled with settings to play with, but we're just going to focus on a few. Under Shape Dynamics, we can change how thick or thin our brush is based on how much pressure we apply. You can also change the minimum size here as well to always keep the brush on the thicker side. This can be helpful if you have a light touch. Transfer is where we will change the opacity of the brush to also be reflected by how much pressure we are applying in our strokes. You can bump up the minimum here as well. At the top, you'll find the brush tip shape options where you can change the spacing and angle of the brush. These will be covered more in depth later. Just know that the smaller percentage your spacing is, the smoother the brush will lay down. Now once you're happy with the settings you have, click the little plus icon in the bottom right to create a new brush that will keep these settings innately. You can always tweak these later and create a new version of that brush, so don't worry too much about it. Now you can give your new brush a test drive and see how you feel about it. This is also a good time to mention that brushes created this way can be used for things like your eraser or smudge tool. As you can see, when I click the canvas, the brush lays down the same shape I created, but when I use it to create strokes, there is a more paintbrush bristle quality to it. If I create a very large stroke, you can see that due to the spacing, there is a rippling texture being created. You can solve this by bringing the spacing all the way down, but honestly this wouldn't be an issue and you would hardly notice it in your work. Now let's make a brush that changes angles. Generally you don't want to use a round brush or a square brush here because the angle changes won't show very well, which is kind of defeating the purpose. Once again, we will define brush preset and open up the brush settings panel. I'm going to apply pressure sensitivity to my opacity again, then go back under Shape Dynamics. Here we will change the angle jitter to direction. This will make it so that the angle of the brush follows the direction your pen is moving while creating a stroke or a line. You can change the base angle, which we will go over later, but I want to keep this brush at 0 degrees. As you can see, the angle is now dependent on the direction my pen is moving. I don't use this often with my general brushes, but I will show you some cool things you can do with it momentarily. I'm going to create a quick little chain link shape and show you how I tend to use angle and spacing options to make things like chains, ropes, and other repetitive patterns. This can save you a ton of time and a lot of headache. So like before, we will go into the brush settings panel, then Shape Dynamics, and change the angle jitter to direction so that the pattern will follow the direction our pen is moving. After that, it's back to the brush tip shape settings. This is where we will fine-tune the spacing and angle to create the seamless chain links. I start by changing the angle so that the links line up in the correct direction, then I use the spacing slider to find the desired separation for this brush to work the way I want. Then we save the new brush and test it out. As you can see, I now have a brush that will automatically paint a chain silhouette. You can take more time to create a more detailed shape if you would like something with a little more of a realistic quality. Although this is a pretty cool solution to creating certain patterns quickly, it does have some issues you need to keep in mind. Immediate changes in direction or zigzagging will break this effect by not lining up the pattern correctly. It's a little annoying, but it's still better than painting every link in this chain individually. Now I'll create a brush that might be a good go-to for painting and actually use it to make something. This is where personal preference comes in. My brushes tend to be very simple. It's not about what brush you're using, but your knowledge on how to effectively apply it. No matter what brush you download, it won't make up for shortcomings in skill. The only way to improve is to put time and effort into studying, learning, and practicing. Many amazing artists out there use the most generic round brushes and gradient brushes to create fantastic artwork. I have a very large folder of brushes myself, but I only use 4 or 5 for about 95% of my finished artwork. It's not about the brush, it's about the person behind it, and art is a skill that any person can learn with enough effort. If you have any questions about what I covered in this video, ideas for something you would like to see me cover in a future video, or just something you'd like to see me draw, please leave a comment. And if you could leave a like or subscribe, that would also be very appreciated. But enough about that, I've made a new brush, so let's get to painting something with it. Now is a good time to go ahead and thank all of my wonderful patrons over on Patreon. You're all amazing and help drive me not only to create, but also to improve. Patrons receive several perks such as exclusive content, you know, the spicy stuff, exclusive tutorials, voting rights on some of the things I do next, and other perks. I'm always trying to think of new cool things to offer. If any of these things sound interesting to you, and you'd like to support my artistic journey, I would very much appreciate it. You can find my Patreon link in the description below or on any of my social media. I would like to thank my patrons once again for supporting me in my artwork, and for those of you that may be interested in something more physical, you can purchase physical prints and stickers of my artwork over on my website, www.mrgunart.com. Please like, subscribe, click that bell icon for notifications on uploads, and thank you for watching.